that the bell be rung for 10 minutes. This is to allow for more members day. According to the Standing Orders number 35, subsection 1, the Standing Orders dictate that if at any time the chair is taken or when the House is in committee, a member objects that there is not quorum present, the Speaker or the chairperson shall count members in the House or in the committee as the case may be. Subsection 2 states that if on the count under paragraph 1 a quorum does not appear to be present, then the Speaker or the chairperson shall cause division of the bell to be rung on a division, and if no quorum is present for the expiry of 10 minutes, then the Speaker shall adjourn the House until the next sitting without a question being put. Pursuant to Standing Orders number 42A, subsection 5, members of Parliament will be asking questions for reply before specified departmental committees. Member for Nyandarua County, Honorable Faithway Rimugitau, will be asking the Cabinet Secretary for Interior as well as Coordination of National Government, what measures has the ministry put in place to ensure that information may not have been captured during Huduma number registration exercise in 2019 is included on the Huduma card before it's rolled out. The member will also be seeking to understand the measures the ministry has put in place to ensure that persons who may not have registered for the various reasons, such as the elderly, as well as majority of whom were not able to reach the registration centers during the registration exercise, are registered. And could the ministry consider using information available in the current national identity cards for citizens above 18 years and subsequently upgrading to Huduma cards to save the country from the colossal amount of money being spent in the Huduma number exercise? Those particular questions will be replied before the Departmental Committee on Administration as well as National Security. Member for Ikolomani, Honorable Bernard Shinyali, will be asking the Cabinet Secretary for Transport, Infrastructure, Housing, Urban Development and Public Works to explain the upgrading of Sigalala, Malinya, Musolu, Butere Road in Butomain standards in Ikolomani constituency to include the extension of Malinya, Shitoli, Igubu Road, a road the MP claims has stalled, and what measures has the ministry put in place to ensure that the construction of the road resumes as soon as possible, and when is expected to be completed. Also, the honourable member will be seeking to understand what measures have been put in place to ensure that sections of the road which are currently impassable are also made motorable. Those questions will be replied before the Departmental Committee of Transport, Public Works and Matters Housing. Member for Sibukia, Honorable Samuel Gitobe, will be asking the Cabinet Secretary for Public Service and Gender why were the 50 persons from 26 sub-locations in Subukia sub-county who were recruited under the National Youth Service Youth Empowerment Programs in the month of May to August 2016. This is to supervise works in their respective locations, were not paid up to date. And could the Cabinet Secretary state when the said persons will receive their dues? Those particular questions will be replied before the Departmental Committee on Administration as well as National
Order, members,
Security.
Order. We now have the required quorum, and you, as you know, this afternoon you will
has
be
been achieved, and I'll now hand you over for the live broadcast.
So you can start doing your mocks this morning. So wajumbe mnaweza kuanza kupiga msasa ngeli zenu za viima. So tutaanza.
Order number 1, administration of oath. Order number 2, communication from the chair. Order number 3, messages. Order number 4, petitions. Order number 5, papers. Order number 6, notices of motion. Order number 7, questions and statements.
On this particular order, we will start with the member for Nyandarua, Honorable Faith Gitau.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. My question goes to Cabinet Secretary for Interior and Coordination of National Government. What measures has the ministry put in place to ensure that information that may not have been captured during the Huduma number registration exercise in 2019 is included on the Huduma card before it is rolled out? Question number 2, what measures has the ministry put in place to ensure that persons who may not have registered for various reasons, such as the elderly, majority of whom were not able to reach registration centers during the registration exercise, are registered? And question number 3, could the ministry consider using information available in the current national identification cards for citizens above 18 years and subsequently upgrading to Huduma cards to save the country the colossal amount of money being spent in the Huduma number exercise? Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Very well. That one will be replied to before the Departmental Committee on Administration and National Security. And by the way, that's one question, only with different parts, but one question. So we go to the next. The Honorable Member for Ikolomani, Honorable Masaka Hinali. Is Hinali in the house? I thought I'm seeing him. Okay, so what is the issue, Honorable Hinali? You want to ask your question, isn't it? Proceed.
Chair, I'm not seeing the question, if you excuse me.
What?
I beg that, I haven't received the question yet, Chair.
You are the one who asked the question. We can only lend you that one, but you are the one who asked the question, so obviously you have it. Unless there is a... But in the meantime, as we... Okay.
Thank you, Speaker. I stand to ask question number 331 of 2020. Good Cabinet Secretary for Transport, Infrastructure, Housing, Urban Development and Public Works. Explain why upgrading of Sigalagala, Malinya, Musoli, Butere Road 260 to bitumen standards in Ikolomani constituency to include the extension of Malinya, Shitoli, Ikuu Road, A9127 road has delayed, as told, Mr. Speaker. Number 2, what measures has the ministry put in place to ensure that the construction of the said road resumes as soon as possible, and when is the expected completion date? Three, Mr. Speaker, what measures are in place to ensure that the section of the said road which are currently impassable are also made motorable? Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
That one will be replied to before the Departmental Committee on Transport, Public Works and Housing. Next is Honorable Kinodia, the member for Subukia. Also known as Gashobe. Honorable Gashobe. Proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir. I like to ask question number 333 of 2020 to the Cabinet Secretary for Public Service and Gender. Why were the 50 persons from 26 sub-locations in Subukia sub-county who were recruited under the NYS Youth Empowerment Program in the month of May to August 2016 to supervise work in their respective sub-locations not paid to date? 2, could the Cabinet Secretary state when the said persons will receive their dues? Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir.
That one will be replied to before the Departmental Committee on Administration and National Security. The next one is the Honorable Member for Sirisia, Honorable Major Retired John Waluke. Seems not to be functioning, Honorable Waluke. Let's see where else you can. That's not the right way to do it, but let's proceed anyway for today. But otherwise, members.
A question is 337 of 2020. I rise to ask the Cabinet Secretary for Treasury and Planning. What measures, if any, have been put in place by the Ministry to protect vulnerable citizens and business, especially small and medium-sized enterprises, from exploitation by digital money lenders during the COVID-19 pandemic period? 2, could the Cabinet Secretary clarify whether there is extent of regulations of code of conduct or a set of rules for all members of the Digital Lenders Association of Kenya, and if any, how are they being implemented? Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Very well. That one will be replied to before the Committee on Finance and National Planning. The last one is by the member for Trans Nzoia County, Honorable Nangabo Janet.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise to ask question number 338 of 2020 to the Cabinet Secretary of Labor and Social Protection. 1, what measures has the ministry put in place to ensure that Kenya seeking employment in the Middle East do so only through licensed and registered recruiting agencies approved by the Ministry of Labor? 2, could the Cabinet Secretary explain to the recent claims of abuse of the migrant workers in the Middle East, leading to the loss of lives during a COVID-19 pandemic period? 3, what is the status of implementation of bilateral labor agreement between the government of Kenya and countries in Middle East region regarding the safety of the Kenyan migrant workers? Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
That one will be replied to before the Departmental Committee on Labor and Social Welfare. Next order.
Order number 8, procedural motion, exemption of business from a resolution of the House.
Leader of Majority Party.
Honorable Speaker, I beg to move that this House orders that the business appearing on the order paper, as order number 9, be exempted from the resolution of the House of November 3rd, 2020, regarding prioritization of business during this period, which is November 3rd to December 3rd, 2020, being a Thursday morning, a day allocated for business not sponsored by the majority or minority party, or business sponsored by a committee. Honorable Speaker, we gave an undertaking from House Business Committee that Thursday mornings will be dedicated to private members' bills and private members' business in terms of motions. We also have this small limitation in terms of the court order that kind of froze processing of the bills that were in process until we've reached some so-called concurrence. It's a word we quite don't understand, between ourselves and the Senate. So that has removed effectively all the private members' bills that would have processed. We also were fortunate last week to have the annual address by His Excellency the President, the State of the Nation address. And traditionally, you cannot interrupt the processing of the address or leave it to later by giving preference to other business, because members need to take it when it's still hot. And hence, in House business, we then decided to ask members that allow the House to take this morning and then this afternoon and probably even Tuesday afternoon to process and give an opportunity to members to debate the State of the Nation address, which is a constitutional requirement that the President must address on those key issues for the House to then debate. So at least so that we can have those three days as a block, we agreed that we need to ask members to forfeit this morning. Never mind that there wasn't even much private members' business except a few motions, but we still need to come to you to formally give it back to processing of business sponsored by through the majority party. So this motion is basically to ask that, and we hope you will indulge us in that request. I beg to move and ask my colleague, the leader of the minority party, to second.
Okay, leader of minority party.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, my deputy staged a coup on me, but I can see now on this he has allowed me to proceed and second as the leader of minority, but he's sitting on my seat. Mr. Speaker, thank you very much. I want to second this motion. Number one, Mr. Speaker, yes, today's morning was set aside for the private members' motions and bills. But Mr. Speaker, as the leader of majority has said, traditionally, we have always allowed the immediate sittings after the president's speech to be set aside for debating the president's speech. In fact, President's address to the nation is such an important exercise in any democracy because it spells out what the country has been able to achieve, what the executive is doing, and what the executive plans to do in the foreseeable future. Always is usually one year. So, Mr. Speaker, these honorable members should allow this House to start the debate this morning, continue with it in the afternoon, and those who are going to debate in the afternoon will be very unlucky because they will use the national language, which I'm sure many of us, I'm not the only one, has issues and challenges with. And pleading with you, Mr. Speaker, that Honorable Atandi should not speak this morning and be allowed to speak in the afternoon so that we can see how the people of Alego have become eloquent in the national language. Mr. Speaker, with those remarks, I beg to second.
Okay. So I propose a question, which is that these House orders, the business appearing as order number 9, be exempted from the resolution of the House of November 3rd, 2020, regarding prioritization of business during the period 3rd to 3rd November to 3rd December 2020, being a Thursday morning, a day allocated to business not sponsored by majority or minority party, or business sponsored by a committee. I hear you, honorable member. So I put the question, which is that this House orders that the business appearing as in the order paper as order number 9 be exempted from resolution of the House of 3rd November 2020 regarding prioritization of business during the period 3rd November to 3rd December 2020, being a Thursday morning, a day allocated for business not sponsored by the majority or minority party, or business sponsored by a committee. Will as many as of that opinion say aye? Many as of a contrary opinion say nay? The ayes have it. So we go to the next order.
Order number 9, motion, debate on the President's address, day 1.
Honorable members, those are members who are severely damaged in terms of speaking the national language. You are encouraged to really try your luck this morning, so that in the afternoon, we will leave to those members who can speak Kiswahili okay. So Honorable Atandi, of course you are encouraged. Unfortunately, you seem to be lower in the ranks here. You might have your luck in the afternoon. What is it, Honorable Atandi? I see you have pressed an intervention slot. What is it? Honorable Atandi.
Chair, Honorable Speaker, I wanted to raise an issue in the previous order. And my issue is to do with my question, which has not been answered for the last 3 months. And last week...
Would you mind saying that in Kiswahili, Honorable Atandi, so that I can...
Mheshimiwa Speaker, mimi nimesimama kuulizia ile swali niliulizia hapa kwa bunge kuhusu Speaker, hii ni ngumu.
Well, I hear you, Honorable Atandi. Please save yourself the trouble. I hear you to be complaining that there is a question you asked about 3 months ago.
Yeah, the question has not been answered.
It has not been answered. Where was it directed to?
To the Chair, Departmental Committee of Finance.
Finance.
Yes, and last week, Chair, I even petitioned the Speaker last week.
Yes.
And I think the Speaker did not rule on the way forward properly. So, Honorable Speaker, I really want you to give some direction, because that question was very, very urgent.
And
the question was very important.
Are you a member of the Finance Committee?
No, I'm not.
Okay.
I'm not.
So let me see if the chair of Finance Committee is in the House. That must be Honorable Nyasuna Gladys Wanga. She is not in the House. The Vice Chair? Well, we will request the leader of Majority Party to take that into consideration and look at the reasons why it has taken quite a long time. So let's proceed. Now let's proceed to the next. We are in order number 9. So can we have the leader? Have you called it? Yes. Let's have the leader of Majority Party.
Honorable Speaker, I beg to move that, pursuant to the provisions of Standing Order number 24-6, the thanks of this House be recorded for the exposition of public policy contained in the address of His Excellency the President, delivered in Parliament on Thursday, November the 12th, 2020, and further that this House notes the following report submitted by His Excellency the President, laid on the table of the House on Tuesday, November 17, 2020. A, the report submitted in fulfillment of the provisions of Article 132(1)(c) and 247 of the Constitution, being the annual report on the measures taken and progress achieved in the realization on national values and principles of governance, the annual report on the progress made in fulfilling of the international obligations of the Republic of Kenya, and the annual report to Parliament on the state of national security. And also to be noted, other reports submitted by His Excellency the President was the report on the ease of doing business milestones 2014 to 2020, and the annual report of the Office of the Director of Public Prosecutions for the financial years 2017-2018 and 2018-2019 and 2019 to 2020. Honorable Speaker, as I stated earlier, last week on the 12th of November, we did welcome His Excellency the President to fulfill his constitutional duty through the State of the Nation address as required by our Constitution. And our Constitution requires the President to report basically on various measures, including the progress, the measures taken, and the progress in the realization of our national values, which are contained within Article 10 of the Constitution. And also, in terms of the other requirement, and which I've already stated, was the progress we made in terms of fulfilling our international obligations. And in addition, then the President went even further on the state of security. But he also went further and looked at where we are in terms of the progress we made on easing the costs and the challenges of doing business, and the progress we made on an international benchmarking in terms of where Kenya is ranked. Because if we can improve on our economy, if we can improve on the ease of doing business, then our competitiveness and our attractiveness in terms of attracting foreign direct investments is enhanced, which then also leads to new businesses coming up, new establishments, and job creation, wealth creation, which is what we need for this country. He also did in terms of the government progress in achieving our national transformation agenda to achieve this economic development. Honorable Speaker, I want to look at these matters from several perspectives, and I can look at it first of all in terms of the prevailing environment and the challenge it's having, which is the COVID pandemic, in terms of what impact has it had on all these issues. And then I also want to look at it in terms of the transformation, where we are in terms of obligations, security, and lastly, where as a parliament, what role we play in assisting the President and the nation in the delivery of all this. Honorable Speaker, we all know the impact COVID-19 has had in this country. And the President did address this matter. He highlighted some of the issues that the measures that have been taken, the shutting down, the lockdowns, which is in fact has been more partial than total, like in other places. The curfews that we've had, the shutting down of our learning institutions, the ban on public and social gatherings, which especially we as politicians have been flouting with impunity, and it hasn't helped the masses out there. Restrictions on passengers and even presence of people in vehicles and also in entertainment areas. In all this, the President did also highlight the investments we made in terms of equipping our health institutions, the role played by our frontline workers in terms of the healthcare providers in the management of the disease, and again, unfortunately, despite all these measures, we also noted that we've lost, at that point, 1,200 odd Kenyans to the pandemic. But most importantly, he encouraged all of us that we must remain firm and not backtrack from our vigilance in the fight against this pandemic. And especially as leaders, our stamina for discipline must not diminish, to quote from his speech. If the people fall short of giving their best at this time, we as leaders have no option but to give our all. And we must know the way, go the way, and show the way. I'm repeating this because we as leaders are expected to set the tone at the top. And then the people can follow based on what they see from the behavior of our leaders. And I don't want to belabor this point. I think it's been discussed quite a bit this week, including on Tuesday in the adjournment motion. The Speaker, turning to the national transformative agenda and economic development, is not all doom and gloom. Despite the challenge that we are faced with, the President did articulate some achievements under the Big Four agenda, and most importantly, reminded us that economic development is not about intentions, and it's something that keeps coming, is a running theme that keeps coming whenever we processing the budget. That is not just about what we intend to do, but rather what has actually been achieved, what has been the results. While it's whatever we have done, the monies that we spend, what impact has it had on the lives of our people, on transforming the well-being and the quality of life of our people. And he also did explain, and I think that has been contrary to what many people think, that the Big Four, the emphasis on his Big Four agenda, is not a legacy project. It's not about his legacy, but about a bigger economic development strategy or framework which will be used to reorganize government delivery and answer the question of why in terms of the selection of the priority areas that his government is working on. And if you look at the first big one, in terms of housing, he did explain, for example, what's happening in terms of poverty, liberating the urban dwellers from the poverty of dignity, which has been caused by them living in the slums. And we've seen, for example, the Park Road project, which was the initial pilot project, which was delivered in time and within budget. We've seen what's happening within Mukuru slums. And this is part of looking not just as housing from a housing perspective, but housing as a means of liberating people and transforming their well-being by giving them decent housing so they can start feeling that they're living as human beings rather than just being shackled in slums. The second one obviously has also been, and he did articulate, that we need to start thinking of transitioning our young people from just being earners to owners of capital. And he did give us examples of what's happening within the border sector, the amount of money they are generating, close to 357 billion shillings, which is far bigger than even the amount that we are sending to our counties. It's a kind of money that can be leveraged and harnessed to actually convert them from owners, so they're not just thinking about the borders. This could well be the future owners of trains running on our on the SGR system, on the commuter rail system, so that people start thinking big, that it's not just thinking of one border, but collectively, as owners, the amount of capital that's locked in that sector is enough to leverage and work on others. He did also talk, obviously, about the issues of what's happening on food and food security, and more importantly also in terms of access to mortgage finance.
Who is this member? You know, sometimes it becomes very difficult for the Speaker to pinpoint particular members because, well, never mind the COVID issue. Of course, we encourage that members dress in a manner that prevents spread of COVID. But sometimes you really have to put your card very strongly for us to notice, because I can't be able to know who that member is at all. Proceed.
You know, pilots have a way of addressing their faces. So, but in terms of, we have this new, the Kenya Mortgage Refinance Corporation, again, which has kicked off, and which will help in terms of helping people to realize the affordable housing project. We did, in terms of land reforms, and I'm sure the chair of lands is here and I hope she would give us more information on this. The National Land Information Management System has been revolutionized. And I know we've tabled here and lots of regulations to articulate this. It's really sorting out what's happening within the land. But most importantly, it's not just about people giving people titles. He did explain here, and as he explained before, what's happening that using our own talent and at a very affordable cost, our own young technicians, tech savvy guys, have actually mapped the entire of this country and are still continuing on that exercise, so that we actually know all the resources. First of all, we know where every land is, every public land is. The next thing is what resources are available within our own country. And I think that's all part of, first of all, preparing for the future exploitation of this for the common good. Now, critical also within the achievement of the Big Four is the empowering of our young people. And this starts with a 100% transition from primary to secondary schools. But then even after secondary schools at age 17 and age 18, these people are still young. Then there is the issue of the investment in the technical and vocational training programs. And he did give the figures of 430,000 or 431,000 that are currently enrolled within the 182 TVCs that are scattered across the various constituencies in the country. He, again, apart from just the technical, the training they are getting, there's also partnerships that have already come within the automotive industry, the oil and gas, the marine and shipping, and agro-processing, so that link between industry and the training institutions is already in place. In terms of national security, again, the President did report that our state of national security is strong. And despite the regions, the threats that are, within our region, we know what's happening in Sudan, we know what's happening in Somalia. Of late, we've seen, sadly, what's happening in Ethiopia, which has been quite stable. But at least Kenya has managed to be a beacon of hope within the region in terms of security, and partly that was recognized within the UN system by then getting Kenya a seat within the UN Security Council, which will help at least contribute to global peace, but with more specific attention to our region. The new Nairobi Police Service Control and Command Center for Surveillance and Communication is being implemented, and also we now have the digital occurrence book pilot project with the aim of strengthening security. Yesterday was the launch of the Huduma number cards across the country, which again is tied to enhancing security, because all your information about every Kenyan is now known, and you can be able to keep track of where the Kenyans are, which not only helps the security networks, But even between ourselves and even in terms of business people, they now have more confidence in dealing with Kenyans, that because we can trace where you are as a bank, it's possible for them to give you a loan, because they can now, at least you have some fixed abode or fixed place that they can trace you to. And Honorable Speaker, in terms of turning back to all these things, as a parliament, we'll be expected to perform some our own functions. You may recall, Mr. Speaker, that not too long ago, the President also at Bomas of Kenya did also launch a report that contains the views of Kenyans developed over the last 2 years within the framework of the Building Bridges to Unity initiative. A report that contains policy issues, administrative issues, legislative issues, and constitutional issues to implement the wishes of Kenyans. And it's expected that this House will play a key role in ensuring that the policy have been debated, the legislative issues that are required have come into this House as part of transforming Kenya from where we are and filling up the legal gaps that we see are impeding on the progress and the realization of the Kenyan dream. And most importantly also, in terms of the constitutional reforms that will be required. And I'm sure for those who have read the report, you'll agree that indeed the issues have been identified, the solutions have been identified. The next phase is, let's turn now all those intentions into legal mechanisms so that Kenyans' dream can be achieved. Now, we will come to that point when the papers, in fact, the report is available within the table office. We tabled here because Parliament is a key player. It's a public document. And I would encourage as many members as possible to go through it so that we can start preparing our role in terms of private members' bills, in terms of committee bills, to implement the issues that are contained within there. And I must say, some of the members, I know Honorable Korir, for example, has already drafted a motion on help, on how to help the youngsters from universities in terms of suspending the amount of time between leaving university and getting employment, from insulating them from having to pay interest on the help loans, which is part of contained, but a member has already picked it up and it's already before this House. And I would like to encourage as many more members to do the same so that we play our part as Parliament. But the underlying message was that even to finish what's contained within the Big Four, and Big Four is a long-term agenda item. It's not about the president's legacy, as people try to figure out and say, now he's about to leave office, what happened to his Big Four? It's a national project. It's all anchored to our Vision 2030, which this House has been supporting. And we need to start thinking of it. And even as we start looking at the future leadership of this country, it's who, we need to start hearing the continuation of the Big Four within the framework of achieving our Vision 2030. And in many instances within the speech, if you note, the President actually did laud the efforts of this House in supporting the executive's efforts thus far and encourage members to be more vigilant in the fight against the pandemic, in the fight against corruption, safety for ourselves, safety for our people, so that we can achieve the bigger dream. Now, I'm also aware, and we did a take, and we know from House business that we have close to 60, 70 pieces of legislation that are still awaiting processing at different stages. I know time is not on our side, and I would like to ask, and also we have these restrictions in terms of seating and all that, but I trust and I believe that when we call upon you, you shall all rise to the challenge and we shall deliver in the best interest of our beloved Republic. Honorable Speaker, I could go on and on, but I do believe that I saw the passion He shared his vision of a new Kenya and encouraged all of us to start thinking beyond what I'm doing in Kipipiri, beyond what I'm doing for myself, and to start thinking of the bigger picture, that as we wake up every morning, as we get to work, as we come into this house, let us always put our great republic in the spotlight, in our spheres of thinking, in the lenses that we see things, that we are only doing it, whatever we're doing, we will be doing it to achieve the greater republic. When we are doing our CDF, we'll be looking at how, as members, do we contribute to the infrastructure development to give the social distancing required so that our kids, as they go to school, they will be given that opportunity so that they can come like us in the future. And I think that patriotism and thinking big, thinking of our republic is what we are being called upon as leaders to do. So, Honorable Speaker, with those introductory remarks, I would want to beg that I move, and I ask our colleague, the leader of the minority party, Honorable CPA John Buddy, to second.
Very well. Honorable Buddy, the minority leader.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Thank you for giving me this opportunity to second the motion, which is asking this House to record its thanks on the President's address to the nation. Mr. Speaker, having been ably moved by the Leader of Majority. Mr. Speaker, looking at this, the speech of the President, which was delivered to this House, and it is the 7th speech since President Uhuru Kenyatta assumed office of the presidency in 2013, he actually covered many areas, Mr. Speaker. The Constitution under Article 132 requires the President to address himself to certain particular issues, one of which is the progress, the efforts the government has taken and the progress realized in achieving the principles and values as exposed under Article 10 of the Constitution. Further, he is required to address himself to issues of international relations, how we have engaged in meeting our international obligations as a country. It's also required, Mr. Speaker, to address himself to issues of security for a nation. Mr. Speaker, but the President covered many areas, Mr. Speaker. In summary, the President talked about matters education, he talked about matters big four, he talked about issues of youth, he talked about ICT, he talked about health, and I would say he talked about matters economy. Now, looking at what the speech of the President, he actually gave us a summary of his presidency from 2013 to date. And Mr. Speaker, I'm happy that the President started with the most important concern that the world has at the moment. The most important global concern at the moment, Mr. Speaker, is COVID-19 pandemic. And he took us through the measures that his administration has taken or put in place to mitigate against the effects of this health issue, but also recognized the cooperation and partnership between the executive and parliament, and hailed the support that the National Assembly, more particularly, and even the Senate, gave in terms of approving the statutory instruments, which included the Public Health Act and also the Public Order Act. And Mr. Speaker, he also went ahead and thanked Parliament for helping his administration in approving the economic interventions which were meant to steady our economy. Mr. Speaker, you'll remember that this House actually approved various tax measures or taxation measures, which included the reduction of pay as you earn, the reduction of value-added tax, and the reduction of corporation tax. Mr. Speaker, these were meant to improve the liquidity both at individual level, money to our pockets as individuals, to enhance our purchasing power, but also the liquidity of the entire economy, and which included other measures like paying verified pending bills to the tune of 13 billion, VAT refunds by Kenya Revenue Authority to the tune of 10 billion, lowering central bank ratio by 1%, and of course lowering the CRR ratio by 1%. Mr. Speaker, this House also approved, after receiving the request from the executive, an economic stimulus program of 56.6 billion shilling, which was supposed to help in increasing demand for local goods and services and cushioning the vulnerable Kenyans. Mr. Speaker, I've cited this just to demonstrate the collaboration that the executive has had with this legislative arm of government to help mitigate the effects of the coronavirus pandemic. And Mr. Speaker, that is something to praise, and that is something that I think it is important to observe, that the President recognized the role that Parliament played in that effort. But Mr. Speaker, let me it's not really disagreeing, but something that I'll take a different trajectory from the leader of majority on, is the view that the President took on our economy, or the state of the economy. Mr. Speaker, I still believe that the President is shy from telling us the reality, the truth about where we are in terms of our economic health as a nation. Mr. Speaker, there is no denying that this country, and alongside many others in the world, we are struggling. Let us not shy away from this, because that is why I see a lot of demands on our resources as a nation. People thinking that there is a pool of money somewhere where we can easily dip our fingers, get and sort out our problems. As a nation, Mr. Speaker, we must agree and accept and come to realization that we are in a total economic crisis as a nation. Mr. Speaker, that is so because even the debt level that we approved the other day of 9 trillion, we are almost hitting the 9 trillion. That is a plain fact. We borrowed 784 billion, Mr. Speaker, from World Bank. Fortunately, it was a concessionary loan with zero interest, and I thank the Treasury for that, and with a grace period of 5 years. But it's still a loan, and it has piled on to the loans that we had even before we approved that ceiling. Secondly, we also received 1.6 billion shillings from IMF, 1.6 billion US dollars, which translates to over 160 billion shillings. If you add the two, you are almost hitting $1 trillion in a very short period of time, just because of the COVID-19 pandemic. That raises our indebtedness as a country. We are almost, I am sure, we are almost passing 8 trillion, and so heading to 9 trillion. Mr. Speaker, we must bite the bullet. If you look at our expenditure, the salaries and the entire recurrent expenditure, Mr. Speaker, and the figures from the Treasury, it's coming out that as a nation we are spending over 100 billion more than what we are collecting on salaries and recurrent expenditure. That therefore means we are borrowing to pay recurrent expenditure. And that is not only unconstitutional, but is endangering the financial health of this country. I keep on talking about this, Mr. Speaker, and I want to ask the President to come out boldly on this matter, even if it is a matter of all public officers taking a pay cut, Mr. Speaker. We should, to protect the economy. Because otherwise, if we continue pretending that things are normal, things are not normal. We have this, even before this pandemic, Mr. Speaker, even with the 5.4% growth, GDP growth that we were realizing, we were still not able as a nation to meet all our recurrent expenditure, together with, of course, including the debt repayment with our locally generated revenue. So, Mr. Speaker, that is something that the President, that the government, that this House must address itself to. Otherwise, the future generation will blame us for having been for having neglected our duty. Mr. Speaker, I want to thank the President for some of the efforts that the government has taken, the executive has taken, in trying to improve the dignity of our citizenry. And he talked about eradicating poverty of dignity. It is truly poverty of dignity. If you see the conditions under which some Kenyans live, even in towns like Nairobi, in the slums, it has been poverty of dignity, Mr. Speaker. And I want to say that Nairobi Metropolitan Service, the NMS underbody, is trying to help correct or at least reduce this embarrassing situation that Nairobi has been finding itself in. But that then takes me to ask Kenyans to think seriously of electing good leaders, leaders who can improve the welfare of the citizenry of that electoral area. When you elect clowns, Mr. Speaker, you don't expect services. And Mr. Speaker, a city like Nairobi, a county like Nairobi, with a high level of literacy, should think seriously of who they are putting in place to run the affairs of Nairobi, Mr. Speaker. Because if the national government didn't take this initiative of putting Nairobi under a different administration, the 5 years were going to be wasted and the services in Nairobi were going to deteriorate even further. I'm not saying they were better before, but they were slightly better than what we saw under some kind of leadership which was put in place because people were giving out unga to be voted for and not selling agenda and policy. Mr. Speaker, I'm also happy that the President has observed and recognized that mental health is very critical in this country and that we need to give it proper attention. And Mr. Speaker, upgrading Mathare Hostel is a good move, and I think if there will be any support that the President requires from this House in terms of budgetary allocation, we should not hesitate to help. Mr. Speaker, I have talked about liberation of urban poor from poverty of dignity. I have also mentioned what the President has talked about with regards to mortgage refinance corporation, which has been set in place, it has been incorporated and capitalized. That, I think, is also a good move in helping achieve the Big Four agenda. I also want to agree with the Leader of Majority that Big Four agenda is not some event or activity that we have to, that has to be realized as a project. It's actually a strategy. And there I agree with the President. It is a strategy first to provide health care, universal health care to all citizens of this country. It is difficult, I know. And Mr. Speaker, you saw even the emotion the MP for Seme showed yesterday. And I share with him, because he has been a doctor. He knows what the doctors are going through. Mr. Speaker, the challenge of health, this challenge must be confronted. I know even developed countries like America are still struggling to provide universal health care. There is still disagreement. But we can make positive steps. And Mr. Speaker, that takes me to, even though the resources are limited, but those limited resources need not to be stolen again. Mr. Speaker, when we hear of KEMSA, billions possibly getting lost in a parastatal like KEMSA, where a CEO comes before Parliament and says he's not aware of who decided on what to buy, who to bring, who to source from. Mr. Speaker, it sends shivers down our spine. And we say, as the oversighting institution, And I want to appeal to the Departmental Committee on Health, where Honorable Nyikal sits, that please bring a strong recommendation to this House, very strong recommendation on what steps we need to take in dealing with some of these people who are embezzling funds meant to improve the health services in this country. And those who are even going ahead to profit from money meant to fight COVID-19, and Kenyans are dying in hundreds every month, Mr. Speaker. And we don't know for how long we are still going to be confronted with this pandemic. Those Kenyans, and they are not foreigners, those Kenyans who decided to make themselves millionaires and billionaires from the COVID funds, Mr. Speaker, if we have to remain relevant as a House, we need to have a report in this House with the names of those Kenyans who action should be taken against. And those investigative agencies empowered through our Constitution and the law to take action should move with speed. EACC, DCI, you need to take action on these immoral Kenyans, so to speak. The talk about the youth, Mr. Speaker, I will not overemphasize. I think the President is spot on. The youth is one area that if we don't handle the problems that affect youth cautiously and with urgency, Mr. Speaker.
Order, members. There are two members seated to my right. First, they have not exercised social distancing. And secondly, from where I sit, I can hear that they are conversing in a language that's not parliamentary. I will not mention the names, but they should very quickly rectify before I go to the next step of mentioning their names. Proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I started talking about the youth. The youth bulge in this country is real. Mr. Speaker, we must find ways and clear strategy of dealing with the youth issues. And I want to repeat here and agree with the President that inciting the youth is not the solution. Tokenism is not the solution. The solution relies on clearly defined programs, strategy, and plans to make the youth empowered, and that can only be done through innovation. And Mr. Speaker, that is something that we need to work on very seriously. But Mr. Speaker, on issues security, and I think the President tied the issue security together with other issues under Article 10, the values and principles like democracy, like the issues of inclusivity, the issues of peace and coexistence. He tied them together and talked largely about the BBI, that is the Building Bridges Initiative. Mr. Speaker, I've heard many Kenyans say, go to the extent of even calling BBI report as a useless document. They even go ahead and say, don't waste money on useless initiatives. They are forgetting one fact, that without political stability, you cannot have security in a country. You cannot even talk about health services. You cannot even be able to provide those health services. Kenyans forget very fast. Mr. Speaker, towards the end of 2017 to the first 2 months of 2018, this country was ungovernable. We actually literally had 2 presidents recognized differently. We had the president who was sworn in at Kasarani, and then there was another president we swore in at Uhuru Park, the people's president. And Mr. Speaker, whether it was me, it was you are the same ones who have been bringing problems with Tangatanga, Kieleweke, etc. Mr. Speaker, we must speak with ourselves. This kind of carelessness where you hear people shouting when they have opportunities to talk later, people bringing a lot of propaganda on an important document, as important as BBI. Those who are saying that BBI report is useless, can you tell us which one is useful?
What efforts have you taken? The efforts cannot be distributing wheelbarrows. That cannot be the effort to bring peace in this country. Peace in this country must be brought through some deliberate efforts to make changes that are required and are necessary. Mr. Speaker, I want to speak about the propaganda. Some of the propaganda that we hear around. People talking about BBI increasing the cost by creating many positions. Mr. Speaker, and I want this House to listen to me on this. Mr. Speaker, the Senate, in order to realize the gender principle, is being increased from 67 to 94. That is an increase of 27 members. In the National Assembly, we are increasing it with 11 members. That's a total of 38. But Mr. Speaker, compare that to when you move the cabinet secretaries from outside.
What is your point of order?
How can this one who I don't even know can see?
No. The honourable member for Chebalungu.
Honourable Speaker, is it in order by the minority leader to say peace in this country is Raila? Is it in order? Is it in order that we are told without Raila there is no peace? Is it in order?
Well, I never... No,
Mr. Speaker, I don't know why some constituents cannot elect literate people to come to Parliament. You don't bring such kind of literate people to come to Parliament. You don't even know what you're saying.
I don't want you to go that direction. I don't want you to go that direction.
Mr. Speaker.
What is it, Honorable Ngena, again?
Bwana Speaker, unajua sisi zote yenye tulichaguliwa hapa, Speaker, either sisi illiterate ama tuko literate, Bwana Speaker, tumechaguliwa na watu. Na mtu kuwa ati kiongozi ya wachache asifikirie ati yeye amesoma kushinda wengine. Hata sisi tumesoma. Sisi tumesoma, rafiki yangu, na tulichaguliwa na watu kuletwa hapa, na hauna cheo ya kuongea vibaya kuhusu wajumbe wengine ambao walichaguliwa hapa kama wewe.
Okay.
Kwa hivyo Bwana Speaker, ningependa kuuliza kama is it in order mjumbe kama mimi aongee vibaya venye ameongelelea mwenzetu ambaye hapa illiterate ama literate.
Now, honorable members, and what is it, Honorable Manzo? I think you are taking a lot of time from the leader majority. What is it, Honorable Manzo?
Yes, Mr. Speaker, I've been on intervention for quite some time. Is it in order for the Honorable Body to impute motive against the governor of Nairobi, even give him names on this floor, while he's aware very much that the governor is already in court on some of the matters? He's also had an agreement with the president. Is he making it better to come and call the governor names here, while we know he was elected with over 1 million people, Mr. Speaker?
Now, I think those are two. Honorable Mbadi, on the issue of member for Chebalungu, I think that, in my opinion, was not the correct position. That is something which I know you as a senior member can easily dispense off with that one. I think he has some recognizable papers. That is the only bit that I have an issue with. But in terms of the normal exchanges between members, I mean, that's part of debate.
Mr. Speaker, first of all, I didn't even know who that MP was. But from the way he spoke, I felt, from the way he spoke, so there's nothing personal. It's only that from the way he spoke, I felt that there was something really missing from, because really, who spoke about Raila? I've never mentioned the name Raila since morning. When he comes up with Raila's name, then I felt he was not so literate. But Mr. Speaker, probably had a problem. Maybe he didn't hear properly.
That is a bit also that I actually agree with the minority. In fact, I was also trying to ask myself at what point that particular name was mentioned, because I didn't hear it. So the members, I think we can put that one to go. That one is sorted. That one is sorted. I think.
Mr. Speaker, that is why
I think he has already made a point.
No, Mr. Speaker,
it's only that I thought, how could he have understood that I spoke about Raila when I didn't? That, to me, I thought this is not someone who is so literate. But if he's educated well, then I want to leave it there and say the constituents can continue electing him. Only that he should be advised to listen properly. And the MP who keeps on talking in funerals, my friend Ngeno, also to listen carefully. But Mr. Speaker, on the issue of governance, I recognize.
Honorable Mbadi.
I recognize, yes.
Honorable Mbadi, Honorable Ngeno was in very recently in the same formation as yourself. I could see from his, gestures here that he might be saying, I learned a little from that side. And therefore, he speaks in those particular areas that you do. So let's proceed with that. No, your time is actually over. So they took just 1 minute from you. They took 1 minute. So I want you to say it. I'll give you a minute, Honorable Mbadi, because they took a minute from you.
Mr. Speaker, the one for Manzo should not go unchallenged. Mr. Speaker, really, I did not deny the fact that somebody was elected by over 1 million. That's why I'm speaking to those people who elected him. That you should not, over 1 million people should not elect someone who cannot run a county. In future, they should elect someone who can run a county. And I have no regrets to say that. Mr. Speaker, I second.
So, honorable members, let me propose a question. Let the rest of the things go under. You can now contribute when you get the opportunity. So I propose a question which is that pursuant to provisions of Standing Order 224-6, the thanks of this House be recorded for exposition of public policy contained in the address of His Excellency the President, delivered in Parliament on Thursday, November 12, 2020, and further that this House notes the following report submitted by His Excellency the President, laid on the table of the House on Tuesday, November 17, 2020. The report submitted in fulfillment of Article 132(1)(c) and 247 of the Constitution. 1. The annual report of the measures taken and progress achieved in realization of the national values and principles of governance. 2. The annual report on the progress made in fulfilling the international obligation of the Republic of Kenya. And 3. The annual report to Parliament on the state of national security. The other reports submitted by His Excellency the President are the report on ease of doing business milestone 2014-2020 and the annual report of the Office of the Director of Public Prosecution for the financial years 2017-2018, 2018-2019, and 2019-2020. So the first shot is given to the Honorable Korere.
Shukrani Spika. Asante sana kwa fursa hii. Mheshimiwa Spika, mimi nasimama hapa namshukuru na kumpongeza Rais wa nchi ya Kenya kwa hotuba yake kwa taifa wiki iliyopita. Mheshimiwa Spika, mimi niliweza kusikiza na kufuatilia kwa makini hotuba ya Mheshimiwa Rais. Na kwa kweli Mheshimiwa Spika aliweza kuzungumzia masuala nyeti na muhimu hasa wakati huu nchi ya Kenya na dunia nzima inapopitia magumu na makali kutokana na majanga kama vile virusi hatari vya corona na uvamizi wa nzige katika baadhi ya maeneo ya nchi hii na kwingineko katika Afrika. Mheshimiwa Spika, nikimnukuu Mheshimiwa Rais aliweza kuzungumzia yale waliweza kufanya kama serikali ili kupunguza makali ambayo wanapitia Wakenya kwa sababu ya hali ya uchumi na hali ambayo wamepitia kupitia na kukosekana kwa biashara. Mheshimiwa Spika, baadhi ya kodi ambayo imepunguzwa ili kukabiliana na makali ya korona ni thibitisho tosha kwamba Mheshimiwa Rais anajali taifa ya Kenya na anajali wachuuzi na wafanyi biashara wadogo wadogo. Mheshimiwa Spika, napozungumzia bado kuhusu virusi vya korona, Mheshimiwa Spika, tumeona kwamba Rais ameweza kufanya mengi na yote ambaye anaweza, na haswa pia napongeza bunge hii kwa sababu kwa dharura waliweza kuketi chini, haswa kamati ya bunge ya bajeti, kamati ya afya. Lakini Mheshimiwa Spika, inasikitisha kwamba baada ya wabunge kufanya kazi usiku na mchana ili kuhakikisha kwamba Wakenya wako salama, ili kuhakikisha kwamba sekta ya afya iko sawa sawa, Mheshimiwa Spika, kuna wale ambayo waliona nafasi ya kujitajirisha, kuna wale waliona nafasi ya kuiba fedha. Na Mheshimiwa Spika, inahuzunisha sana kwamba tunapozungumza sasa hivi sio kwamba Wakenya tu wanakufa, madaktari wanaangamia. Na Mheshimiwa Spika, niliweza kubahatika kuwa katika kikao cha kamati ya afya jana walipokuja mbele zetu madaktari ambayo waliweza kuleta malalamishi yao. Na Mheshimiwa Spika, inasikitisha kwamba tuko katika bunge hili, kila mmoja wetu hapa anajua rafiki, ndugu, jamii ambaye ameangamia kutokana na makali ya korona. Mheshimiwa Spika, hata wenzetu katika nyumba hii wameangamia. Tunapoketi hivi sasa tunaangaliana marehemu watarajiwa, manake hatujui nani atakuwa next. Na Mheshimiwa Spika, najua wabunge wanasikitika sana na kushtuka nikisema marehemu watarajiwa, lakini Waswahili wanasema ukiona mwenziwa akinyolewa nawe tia lako kichwa maji. Kwa hiyo Mheshimiwa Spika, japokuwa Rais amefanya yote yale ambaye anaweza, ni muhimu kwamba nyumba hii, waheshimiwa katika nyumba hii, lazima tumuunge Mheshimiwa Rais mkono, haswa katika vita dhidi ya ufisadi. Mheshimiwa Spika, naona kwamba wanataka kunitimua kwa sababu ya wakati, lakini Mheshimiwa Spika, sitakosa kuongea kuhusu usalama wa nchi hii. Kweli nchi yetu ni salama kutokana na hatari ya nje, lakini nchi yetu sio salama kutokana na hatari ya sisi kwa sisi. Mheshimiwa Spika, nakotoka mimi kuna ujambazi ambayo umekita mizizi, na ni wezi wa mifugo, wavamizi. Mheshimiwa Spika, naposimama hapa hivi, kule kwetu hawaogopi korona, wanaogopa wezi wa mifugo. Na Mheshimiwa Spika, mimi nashangaa sana kwamba askari wetu ambao wanafanya kazi katika eneo gumu kama hilo, tuliweza kupewa askari wa ziada, kwa kimombo wanawaita NPR, lakini baada ya miezi michache waliweza.
Your time is over, and therefore I give the next member is Honorable Ogutu Abel, member for Bachoge Borabu.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I feel privileged to contribute to this motion on the President's address to the nation. I want to begin by saying one thing. The address captures a number of issues that are affecting this country, ranging from security to health to education and also to youth unemployment. Honorable Speaker, I want to zero down on one sector that I feel has not been adequately addressed, and that's the sector on education. The President did highlight a number of actions that have been done within this period to ensure that the education sector has been transformed to the level that it's required to serve this nation. He talked about the CBC, the new curriculum. He mentions about the progress achieved under CBC, and then moves on to the response of the Minister of Education to the pandemic. Honorable Speaker, I want to say that CBC is a good concept, but the conditions under which it is being implemented are wanting. And these conditions have been compounded with the pandemic that has seen our students and pupils withdrawn from schools and now languishing in homes, with many of them losing their lives, with many of them losing the opportunity to realize their dreams, and with many of them just giving up at the end of it. I want to say that as much as many initiatives have been mentioned, including the application of desks, including the reopening of classes for examination students and also for grade 4 pupils, Mr. Speaker, I feel like not much has been done in this sector, and therefore not much was reported in terms of preparedness. We are talking of expansion of infrastructure in schools, upgrading of the same infrastructure, provision of water and sanitation services. So, Speaker, I want to say that many of these honourable members can confirm with me that these are areas that are nothing to celebrate about. In other words, as much as we must open the doors for pupils and students early next year, the report does not give us indicative plans to ensure that proper infrastructure will be in place, proper services in terms of water will be in place. And I want to say that the President has been very categorical. He talks of at least 12,500 new classes, but it doesn't tell us, or personally, I don't see the way these classes are going to be achieved between now and January. And in that case, and for that reason, Mr. Speaker, I want to plead with this House, the committee that is in charge of CDF, for instance, should ensure that all CDF funds that are intended to be used for infrastructure are released any time from now, to ensure that construction of new classes begin alongside what the Ministry of Education is going to bring on board, and that from the county government. Without this, Mr. Speaker, we are actually talking of dreams. And Mr. Speaker, I also want to say that as we prepare towards the opening of schools in January, what about the situation, the healthy condition of our teachers? So, Speaker, I remember that we deliberated a lot about the NHIF and how it is becoming dysfunctional following the declaration by the Minister the other day. I want to say that we must also think about how to improve security of everyone, starting from our pupils, going to our teachers and the communities where these schools are located. The President is very clear and says no child will be denied access to education. We want to realize this dream by ensuring that we move forward to expand the space to provide the necessary services to our children in schools and to ensure that their security is assured when the schools open. Thank you. I support the report.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I did hear the President's speech, and it turned me on, especially when he talked about the youth matters. Mr. Speaker,
and Honorable Babu,
Mr. Speaker,
please put on your mask.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'm saying that, Mr. Speaker, the President's speech turned me on when he talked about matters youth, especially when he talked about the issue of the tax holiday for the youth, Mr. Speaker, when he talked about matters education and supporting the education system and our children in this country, Madam Speaker. And Madam Speaker, I would like to comment and warn. I think I'm on the floor, Madam Speaker. Can I be given my time, please?
Order, members. Honorable member for Dagoretti South. What is out of order? Honorable Babu Awino, there is a point of order.
Madam Speaker, I just want to inquire.
You must resume your seat. Honorable Awino, you must resume your seat.
Madam Speaker, I just want to inquire.
But you must cite the standing order that is out of order.
I just want to inquire if it is in order, Madam Speaker, for the honorable member from Embakasi East to say that he was turned on by a speech, while we very well know that there is no switch that was where the president was, and this honorable member is not a light bulb. How can he be turned on by a speech from His Excellency the President, Madam Speaker? I think he's using some very unparliamentary language.
Honorable member for Dagoretti, which standing order are you applying?
Madam Speaker, it's a standing order on relevance, Madam Speaker.
On relevance.
Which I can even quote in Kiswahili today being a Thursday, Madam Speaker.
Very well. Number one, allow me order that Honorable Babu Awino, that you put your mask on. Properly. Then secondly, it's about English. So being turned on, it depends on how you define your English. So if it was turned on by the speech of the president, this is a house of debate. Can you carry on, honorable member?
Thank you, Madam Speaker. You know, honorable member, honorable member Dagoretti South, whom I refer to as title, is an intellectual, Madam Speaker. And I knew that he would easily digest what I said because, Madam Speaker, if I said that the president's speech turned me on, it turned my brains on, yes. Madam Speaker. So it is something that ought to have been laid to rest. But, Madam Speaker, I also want to comment about the honorable member whom I don't remember the name, that evoked the name of Raila Molo Odinga, Baba. Madam Speaker, he proved on a balance of probability, just by evoking the name of Baba, that he's not only slow, but also dense, vacuous, viscous, thick, and unintelligent, Madam Speaker. Therefore, Madam Speaker, education is very important, and it is free at the primary level, Madam Speaker. So, honorable member, next time, know why you came to Parliament. Don't just talk, because you remind me of a member of Parliament who used to come from Migori. Then when the debate was on, this member used to sleep in Parliament. Then, Madam Speaker, when he woke up, he said, "What about Migori?" Just out of nowhere. Thank you, Madam Speaker. I support the President's speech.
Very well. It's a house debate. It is true that we cannot prove that Honorable Babu Awino was turned on. I wish Honorable Kiari, member for Dagoretti, requested for approval. Let me have the member for all Jorok, Muchira Mwangi.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, for giving me this opportunity to contribute to the 7th State of the Nation presidential address by the President of the Republic of Kenya. Madam Speaker, I want to congratulate the President for the good speech that touched on the issues, the pertinent issues that affect the country. The President talked about the issue of COVID-19 pandemic, which has caused a toll to the economy and the health sector of our country. Our people are dying. We've saved, the pandemic is putting so much pressure to our health sector, and this is an issue that we need to keep on looking at until we win this war on this pandemic. Madam Speaker, probably we need to relook at the state of preparedness of our hospitals. It apparently our governors did not give a true picture on the state of preparedness in our health sector, because we've seen people suffering, lack of proper facilities in our hospital. We saw previously our colleague who went to a level 4 hospital in Kakamega and could not find oxygen. And this is a level 4 hospital, Madam Speaker. Probably we need to relook. The President needs to, together with the governance, Council of Governors, need to look at the level of preparedness of our hospitals, because apparently it is not. We are not prepared to fight this pandemic. Madam Speaker, we also have issue of our health officers who are dying for lack of PPEs. This is an issue that we need to look at. We have the issue of the President recently gave an order on the issue of the KEMSA fund. And he gave, I think it was in August, and he gave 21 days to investigative agencies to investigate and report back on the issue of the COVID funds. But Madam Speaker, we've not seen any report, and this is now 2 months down the line. On the issue of upgrading Mathare Hospital, Madam Speaker, to a referral and teaching, to a teaching and referral hospital, it's a good idea. Madam Speaker, research has shown that 1 in every 4 Kenyans suffer from mental ill in Kenya. And this translates to 12 million Kenyans. This is an issue that needs to be looked at, and this is commendable coming from the President. And probably this is something that the Parliament, through the Health Committee, needs to look at and provide the finances that we are required to provide. On the issue of education, the President directed the Ministry to give the new dates for opening of schools, and the Ministry of Education has given the new dates, that is January. But the question that comes is whether we are prepared to open the schools as per the health guidelines provided by the Ministry of Health. And the President directed that the members of Parliament, through the CDF, to assist the schools in meeting the health guidelines, that is sanitation, in terms of doing more infrastructure. And on this one, I want to support the member who spoke previously on release of CDF funds, so that we are able to do this before January. But this, Madam Speaker, also calls for increment in NGCDF fund. The funds that we have as at now cannot be able to achieve the health guidelines in terms of more infrastructure, sanitations. The money is not enough. And 100% transition, the money is not enough to do all this. So if this money is increased, this would be, it would be good for the members of Parliament to be able to achieve this. And finally, Mr. Speaker, on increment on the number of companies registered, it is a good idea, it's a good thing, but probably we also need to publish the number of companies that did business with government that were registered. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Very well. Let me have the member for Runyenjes, the Honorable Jiru Muchanki, next on my request list. The member representing the people of Runyenjes constituency. I understand he's in the consultation room. But then the other one on the request is the member for Kilifi North, Honorable Baya, yeah. The clerks, yes, give him the mic. The Honorable Baya, I think he's consulting with the member for Runyenjes. This shows how I'm too religious to following the list. The next is the member nominate Honorable Sosion Wilson.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. I rise to support the State of the Nation address by His Excellency the President, coming at a time when this country is facing a serious spike of COVID-19. And as it is, this country remains very resilient in moving forward in the midst of the COVID-19 pandemic. Honorable Speaker, I would like to briefly comment on a few issues stated by the President, and I'll go to the comments on education. He underscored the importance of CBC, and indeed, the true CBC curriculum that has been rolled out by very strong economies, particularly the Nordic countries, a country like Finland, indeed is a very transformative education system. But how it is implemented in this country shall be based on proper preparation, the professional way it is done, and particularly in the process of curriculum review. It is a moment for the universities to engage in a lot of intensive research and release of reports. And in the current circumstances, we see less of activities of universities. And when there is less of activities of universities, then it puts to question the quality of implementation process. And Honorable Speaker, we want to urge the government and the Ministry of Education to open doors to the universities to engage more in the rollout of CBC so that through research, the country can be informed and the ministry can engage in proper activities. And Honorable Speaker, the other aspect for a proper CBC curriculum to be rolled out, teacher preparation and training is key, and particularly at the pre-service. The teachers who are already in the teaching service have undergone the pedagogy on outcome-based curriculum, and such group of teachers may not do the best in rolling out such a curriculum. The best group of teachers to do this are actually the pre-service teachers, and therefore the pre-service teacher training at universities and colleges should be the first point of investment, because a CBC teacher really ought to deliver teaching at a higher order pedagogy, and a CBC classroom shall require at least 1 or 2, 3 teachers in every learning lesson. And therefore, the country must invest in teacher training at the pre-service level. 2, in terms of preparation, or 3, in terms of preparation, is reconfiguring of school infrastructure. So while we are talking about reconfiguring infrastructure to accommodate COVID, it should also take into consideration the class sizes of CBC. If you go to the Scandinavian countries, as a classroom does, in fact, if you get to Denmark, if a class gets to 29, it must be split into 2. So really what it means for CBC is that the class sizes of learners must be drastically reduced so that the true competency objectives are achieved, because we are talking about competencies, and delivering competency outcomes in learners shall require more individualized teaching and evaluation and at the end of every lesson. Therefore, we need smaller class sizes. And because we need smaller class sizes, we require more teachers. Other aspects of the speech, Honorable Speaker, is COVID, the reopening of schools. There is need for government to take over the provision of masks and other PPEs, because without which it will be a tall order to reopen schools. And therefore, there must be affirmative direction of resources. And indeed, this is where the public-private partnership comes in. If government cannot afford, all the corporate institutions that are doing business in this country should be able to direct resources. And also direct funding of schools. And on BBI, and I'm saying this on behalf of Labour, we do support it unreservedly. And it has reached a time we respect our eminent leaders. When you talk of Raila Amolo Odinga, this is a respected statesman and an outstanding.
Your time you've already spent your time. Honourable members, please plan your speaking time. Honorable Sassion, I will not add you any more time. The next on my request list is the member for Edebes. Other members, please plan what you want to say at what point. Of course, we know he was raising.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, for allowing me to comment on the speech, the address speech by His Excellency the President. Madam Speaker, on the onset, I would want to take this opportunity to send my condolence message to the people of Matungu following the death of our colleague, Honorable Murunga.
Order, the members who are transacting their business in the House, please do it so in a manner that we accept in the House.
Honorable Speaker.
Honorable Member for Entebbe. Yes.
Thank you. Honorable Speaker, as the President was addressing his speech, Honorable Speaker, the medical fraternity, Madam Speaker, lost about 10 doctors in the front line in the fight against COVID. And that is a very big loss, Madam Speaker, to our country. And I also want to send my message of condolence to their families during this time. Honorable Speaker, in the President's address, one of the key issues which he addressed was the issue of COVID. And these are difficult times. We've seen nations, developed nations, working very hard. You have Russia coming up with the Sputnik 5 vaccine. You have US with the Moderna vaccine, together with the Pfizer vaccine. And these are milestones which are happening within those countries, Madam Speaker. Unfortunately for us, Madam Speaker, what we have is COVID billionaires. And I expected that in the President's speech, having given a 21-day notice to the EACC, DCI, and the DPP, now more than 100 days down the road, we expected that when the President was going to give that speech, at least there could have been developments in the arrest and prosecution of the COVID billionaires. Madam Speaker, when you look at the ravage COVID is causing, especially in the healthcare sector, it is very, very, very difficult. Madam Speaker, as we speak today, many of our doctors are faced with the challenges of no PPEs. They are faced with challenges of shortage of staff. You have close to 2,000 medical doctors who have not been employed. They are now outside in the streets looking for employment. Yet our government does not have a strategy to come up with on how these doctors are going to be employed, nor how are we going to cap the spread of COVID. Madam Speaker, I expected that by now we should be looking at how, in terms of COVID, we should have been looking at the progress that have been made in arresting the situation. Because every day what we hear, it is becoming a common occurrence that we're only giving statistics, and these statistics are in terms of people. They are not just figures. We are talking of people who are infected, we are talking of people who are dying, yet instead we are not looking at what is it that we are doing in the medical sector to make sure that our healthcare workers, our frontline workers, they are in a position to be able to deliver good healthcare. You know, when members in this House address the issue about what has happened and to one of our colleagues, what the newspapers picked was that members were asking for helicopters and other things. But we need to have an infrastructure within our areas, within every county, that can be able to take not just take care of members, but take care of every citizen of this country, whether you are in the rural or you're in town. So I think we need to look at, the government needs to look at what are the gaps that are existing in health and how can we be able to address those issues. With those few remarks, Madam Speaker, I support the address.
Very well, the member for Entebbe. Let me have the member for Kitui Central, the Honorable Daktari Makali Mulu. Honorable Dr.
Yeah, thank you, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, thank you for the opportunity. So that I also add my voice to the presidential speech on the state of the nation. Honorable Speaker, this is a very abnormal year, and I must really thank the President for the speech, because, Honorable Speaker, this year been very unique because of the COVID-19. The speech had to be tailored so that it addresses issues which are affecting Kenyans. Honorable Speaker, one of the things I picked is on COVID-19, there are quite some good proposals in the speech, which, if implemented, will actually be able to help Kenyans. Honorable Speaker, there was the issue of reforms in the NHIF as opposed to the universal health care. And Honorable Speaker, it was good to hear the President saying that there will be need to restructure the NHIF so that even as we implement the universal health care, that NHIF will be prepared for that important function, Honorable Speaker. The other thing, Honorable Speaker, the issue of the mental health was also very important, and the proposal to upgrade Mathare Hospital to be a parastatal was also very welcome. The issue of the health of our children, Honorable Speaker, also was given a mention. And Honorable Speaker, as we address the issue of our children, the health of our children, there was a proposal to have honorable members supporting the education sector. While this is a good proposal, Honorable Speaker, the issue is the timing, because I know most of the honorable members have submitted their proposals. I don't know to what extent this request has been factored in. So if it has not been factored in, Honorable Speaker, it means there will be an issue. But I think that does not stop the government from also providing additional resources through CDF so that more classrooms are constructed. The other issue is the issue of our doctors and health workers, Honorable Speaker. I think this is an area where really the government needs to do much more than it has done. And more so, the issue of allowances, salaries, and the PPEs. Honorable Speaker, there was the issue of the national security. And I was encouraged when I heard that the President mentioned the issue of national security is going to be given a priority. And then there was a mention of the need to be peaceful as a country and also be able to export peace to our neighbors. The President also did mention the issue of regional integration, Honorable Speaker, where we are talking about really ensuring that the East Africa integration is enhanced. And to me, this is very important because when our neighbors are at peace, then, Honorable Speaker, automatically Kenya will also be at peace, and more likely, as the President was proposing, we could easily actually export peace to our neighbors. Honorable Speaker, the other issue which was also mentioned is the issue of the need for leaders to reach to each other, so that even where we differ, Honorable Speaker, leaders should be able to talk to each other, agree on issues, and most possibly build consensus. And as a way of trying to explain this, Honorable Speaker, I remember the President requesting the two houses of Parliament, Senate and National Assembly, to engage in consensus building when it comes to issues of how we conduct our business. And to me, Honorable Speaker, this was very important because we have seen a situation where Senate takes the National Assembly to court and the National Assembly has to go and defend itself in court. And to me, we are the same house. So I like the idea of consensus building being encouraged and being given emphasis in this report. The last issue, Honorable Speaker, which was important is, as leaders, we are reminded that we are only leaders in this country and we hold this country in trust for future generations. And Honorable Speaker, this is what I want to say. If as leaders, today's leaders, Honorable Speaker, if we all appreciate the fact that we are only leaders in this country today, so that we hold this country in trust for future generations, we'll be able to do things correctly. And this will apply to economics. So we manage our economy. We'll be bearing in mind that future generations will come and will want to find a very strong economy. When it comes to social issues, we'll bear in mind that whatever we do today has implications to our future generations. So to me, this was really the crux of the matter. That as leaders, always remember what we do today will have implications that are positive or negative to future generations. And that's how we should be able to make our decisions. With those remarks, Honorable Speaker, I support.
Very well. Members, for the sake of relevance, allow me guide you that we are giving thanks of the House recording for the speech of the President. And number two, we are noting the reports that in your order paper, so that we are a bit relevant. Thank you, Honorable Makali, for being relevant on the issue, on the motion number 9. Number two, members, please avoid as much as possible visiting the Speaker's desk or the class desk. You know, I'm receiving many, unless it's an issue that needs to be addressed. We have the leader of minority, leader of majority, we have the class desk, so that at least we know the area. We are in a very dangerous time. The member for Kadiani.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I also rise to give thanks in support of the President's speech that he gave to this House. Madam Speaker, I want to begin at the point where the President said that like Moses, who stood on top of Mount Nebo, he could see the promised land that the country was going towards. And Madam Speaker, it is really true that this country requires that kind of foresight. Because, Madam Speaker, when the President talks about, or when he talked about bringing Kenyans together and uniting Kenyans for a better future, it really is something that needs to be taken seriously. Madam Speaker, the idea and the proposal that the President talked about of building bridges, I think many times people keep forgetting the history of this country and where we have come from. And Madam Speaker, when the President talked about bringing Kenyans together, it is because every 5 years, every election cycle of 5 years, Madam Speaker, Kenyans fight, lose property, they lose their loved ones, people get injured, and maybe some people can forget, Madam Speaker, but I cannot, because up to today, I walk with a metal plate in my leg that has got 4 screws. I cannot pass any metal detector, because every time I do that, I am reminded of what I went through. And Madam Speaker, I am okay, I am walking. What about those who are maimed that are on wheelchairs? What about those whose properties were lost? What about those people who lost their loved ones? Why is it that every few months we forget what happened? Me, I want to say what the President is doing to bring Kenyans together is something that is very noble. And let us not politicize every situation, because the fact is Kenya has come from very far and we require everybody's support. Madam Speaker, it's so unfortunate when you hear people completely saying no just for the sake of saying no. Some saying no because they've even created a situation where we are dividing Kenyans on a situation of us versus them, those who have versus those who don't have, the hustlers versus the dynasties, and people forget we are trying to bring Kenyans together. Building bridges means bringing those that were opposing each other to the same table. So, Madam Speaker, I want to say that it is important that we as a country unite and support the President in this intention to unite Kenyans. Madam Speaker, COVID-19 has become the excuse. And unfortunately, it is so shameful when people use something that is killing children, killing grown-ups, killing men, women, killing doctors, killing politicians, leaders. I mean, as an excuse. Let me say this, Madam Speaker, because I've had people who want to oppose the idea of bringing Kenyans together, and they're saying, oh, there is corona. If today you have a problem of forest fires, you will look for a policy on how to address forest fires. Once that policy is in place, someone cannot wake up and say, you know, the solution to forest fires does not solve a problem of flooding. Because that was not the problem in the beginning. These are separate issues. One is corona, which we understand and has to be dealt with. The other one is the fights every 5 years and the economic downturn that this country takes every 5 years because of political competition. So, Madam Speaker, I want to say that I am supporting building bridges. And now I'm also supporting the fight against corona. But let's go to what has the government done on the fight against corona. Because when people speak, it is like as if there's nothing that has been done. Madam Speaker, healthcare workers are getting 6 billion under the UHC coverage. for recruitment of 5,000 health workers and 11,000 interns. That is a positive. Madam Speaker, those businesses, micro, medium, and small enterprises, are also benefiting tremendously because there is suspension of, that we are suspending temporarily listing by CRB. We are reducing taxes from 30% to 25%, reducing VAT from 16% to 14%. Ministries are being told to pay pending bills up to 13 billion. We are telling, the government is saying hasten KRA VAT returns. 5 billion credit guarantees being given. Madam Speaker, there is so much that is being done by this government to support people that have been affected by corona. Not to forget Kazi Mtaani, desks that have been given out. So I want to say that I do agree with the President. He's done quite a bit. There is a lot more that can be done. But I want
let me have the county representative for Nandi, Honorable Tumchebet.
Madam Speaker, ninasimama kuunga hotuba ya President mchana wa leo. Nataka kusema ya kwamba aliongea ya kwamba kuna changamoto nyingi kwa mahospitali yetu. Nataka kusema ya kwamba kweli tumeona madaktari wamekufa. Hata honorable ule tulikuwa tunafanya na yeye Justus ameaka. Ninapeana rambi zangu kwa watu wa area yake. Honorable Speaker, kuna haja ya kununua masks kwa mahospitali yetu. Wale wanatuchunga kama tuko wagonjwa, lazima walindwe vilivyo. Niliona daktari jana, Honorable Nyikal, akitoa machozi, hata nikatoa machozi kwa nyumba yangu. Kwa sababu ninamheshimu sana. Tuweke maanani, tuache kila kitu, tuone afya ya nchi ya watu wa Kenya. President aliongea, hakuna mtoto atawachwa nyuma. Hata wale wamepata watoto wakiwa wadogo. Kule Nandi County, niko na wanafunzi 300 wale wamepata watoto. Kutoka miaka 14 mpaka 19. Na ninaomba ma-principals vile President amesema, wasirutishe mtoto yeyote ule amepata mimba kwa sababu haikukuwa shida yao. Ni ugonjwa ilifanya watoto wapaki nyumbani na wakachanganyana na wengine. So hiyo ilikuwa President amepeana order au wasichana hata kama wamezaa warudi shule January. Honorable Speaker aliongea juu ya akili isiyokuwa timamu, atatengeneza hospitali kule Matare. Nasema pongezi kwa sababu ya COVID-19. Kwa sababu ya ugonjwa kuna watu wamepoteza kazi. Kwa sababu ya ugonjwa wingi ya umaskini imekuwa katika nchi hii. Ninajua ya kwamba hao watashughulikiwa. Hata jana jioni tuliona ule mtu alinajisi watoto wake wawili. Mmoja ya 4 days na mmoja ya miaka 4. Tunataka hao waende kutibiwa Matare ili watoto wetu wapaki kwa usalama. Kwa BBI ninasema iko sawa, lakini hoja ya wamama katika Kenya, katika hii bunge mpaka ishughulikiwe. Hatuwezi kutolewa kama 47 women reps tuwekwe kule Senate pali atuongei juu ya kutengeneza pesa na kutumia pesa katika Kenya. Wamama ya nchi lazima washughulikiwe. Hatuwezi kutolewa from pali moja na kutubwa pali lingine. Sisi tuko 52% ya hii nchi na hoja yetu mpaka ishughulikiwe vilivyo. Kwa pending bills 13 million waliambia ministries walipe hiyo pesa haraka, na ile teni wako naye kwa sababu Wakenya wanachiua. Wakenya wako na shida, vijana wamechukua loan, pesa zao siko serikali, pesa zao siko counties. Nikikuta vijana they are demoralized. So hii nchi ishughulikie kulipa mateni ya watu ili watu wasichiue. Tunafungua shule January. na tukifungua shule Januari watalipa school fees na nini. Ya mwisho, watoto yetu waonwe, wanunuliwe masks, walimu wanunuliwe mask. Kuna mwalimu jana aliaka dunia, niliona watoto wakipiga nduru. Pesa zote zile siko, tuweke maanani maisha ya Wakenya. Sisi wote tumeokopa, hatujui tutapaki wangapi 2022 ile wanasema kila wakati tunaimba, kama afya yetu haiwekwi maanani. Asante Honorable Speaker.
Very well, member for Nandi. Let me have the member for Lamu, the women rep, Olo Mahmoud.
Asante Bi Speaker kunipatia na mimi nafasi nami niweze kuchangia katika hotuba ya rais tunayempenda. Mimi katika mambo yalionifurahisha, ya kwanza ni alizungumza kuhusu kupambana na ufisadi. Hii kupambana na ufisadi lau itafatilizwa kisawasawa, hii Kenya yetu tutakuwa mbali. Na pia ningependa kumpongeza rais kwa sababu angalau ameweka matumaini. Ilikuwa nyuma huwezi kuona waziri akienda kuhujiwa, akaenda kwa tume ya ufisadi kuhujiwa, lakini sasa hivi tumeona mawaziri kadhaa ambao wameenda kuhujiwa. Kama sasa hivi tumeona pia kwa mitandao kwamba ameenda waziri Magoha na wengine walitangulia kwenda. Kwa hivyo tunampongeza rais, angalau ameweka hayo matumaini. Kupitia kwa utaratibu wa utendaji namba 2 wa mwaka 2020, rais aliamrisha mfumo wa utendakazi na wajibikaji matayarisho ya kupambana na COVID-19. Lakini mpaka sasa masikitiko tunasikia upande wa afya bado kaunti hazijitayarisha vilivyo. Sasa sijui sisi wa Kenya tutabidi tuweke ile fimbo kule jela, kwa sababu vitu vinaambiwa lakini watu hawafanyi. Pesa zinapelekwa za matayarisho lakini watu hawafanyi. Kisha tutamlaumu nani? Manake kama ni rais ametoa njia ya kufanywa, ametoa utaratibu, ametoa tu, sisi hapa tumeweka pesa lakini watu bado hawafanyi, kisha mtamlaumu rais. Mtabidi mjifundishe mheshimiwa. Sawa. Kiswahili kitukuzwe kwani ni lugha ya taifa. Na leo mchana itabidi watu wazungumze Kiswahili. Sasa tuanze kujifundisha. Hata sisi kuna mambo mengine hutushinda, huangalia pia tukajua inamaanisha nini.
Just carry on mheshimiwa. Very well.
Asante. Pia nikapendezwa na ile alivyozungumza kwamba ugonjwa wa kiakili kutakuwa na hospitali za kitaifa za kutibu tena za kisasa. Itasaidia sana. Bi Speaker, kule kwetu Lamu watu wengi wanapotea, akili zinaharibika kwa sababu ya madawa kulevya. Utaona youth wadogo wamefungiwa ndani ya nyumba, maskini akili zimepotea. Ikiwa itawekwa hospitali kama hizi zitatusaidia sana. Pia akazungumzia kuwe na mustakabali wa kitaifa kwa watoto wetu. Yaani watoto wetu ndio matarajio yetu. Yaani ule mustakabali mzuri ukitengezwa kutoka kwa shule mashinani au shule hizi za msingi chini, wale watoto watakuwa watakuwa kwa njia mzuri, kwa maadili mazuri, kwa sababu sisi Kenya shida si sheria, shida si pesa, shida ni ile roho zetu. Kila mtu akiona pesa ya serikali hii ni ya kuliwa. Sasa tukijenga mustakabali mzuri tutaweza kujirekebisha, ianze kwa watoto. Manake kwa sahihi wale wanaofanya mazuri ndio waonekana wabaya. Kwa sababu kama wewe huibi, huna pesa za kupeatia watu kwa matanga nyingi, huna pesa za kufanya mambo yale wananchi wanataka, unaonekana mbaya kwa sababu huibi. Wamezoea wabunge wote wana pesa. Na kusema kweli wabunge labda uwe na biashara zingine. Lakini au pia hizi mashirika ya kiserikali pia labda wawe na biashara nyingine, lakini ukiangalia ule mshahara hautoshi kufanya yale mambo. Kwa hivyo mustakabali wa kitaifa ni muhimu. Pia naona time inaisha. Elimu amezungumzia, tunataka hii elimu iende mpaka mashinani, Kile mwanafunzi wa Nairobi anapata, mwanafunzi wa Lamu apate vile vile. Amezungumza kuhusu security, usalama. Usalama ni muhimu, especially sisi watu wa boda. Tunahitaji usalama, tunataka ile ukuta umalizwe kujengwa, boda zifunguliwe, waweze kuweka mikakati mizuri, kwa sababu sisi tuna jamii upande ule mwingine ambao wametukata jamii kama Wabajuni wa Somalia na Wabajuni wa Kenya. Kuna mengi ya kuzungumza, lakini naona wakati umeisha. Nampongeza tu rais sana na sana. Asante.
Asante. Very well. Let me have the member for Seme, the Honorable Nyikal Wambura.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Speaker, for giving me the opportunity to respond to the President's address on the state of our nation, Kenya. Madam Speaker, the President correctly said the nation is strong, resilient, and brimming with the promise of an even brighter future tomorrow. Madam Speaker, he also correctly identified the major challenges that we face as a country. Madam Speaker, I'll only consider one of the major challenges: the challenge of coronavirus pandemic and the implementation of the universal health coverage. Our attempt to get every Kenyan access health care that they need, when they need, at a cost they can afford, regardless of their economic status. Madam Speaker, this is a challenge, and I know the President has attempted to address it. But there are some major challenges that have been revealed by corona pandemic. It has revealed the weakness of our health systems, particularly the management of human resource. Those are the people who look to our people, from the health worker who prevents disease to the specialist at level 4, 5 and above that look after us, like in the case of COVID now, when we need care of oxygen and ventilation, that level. The greatest challenge, Madam Speaker, and we must address this if we want to address corona and if we want to achieve universal health care. It is the coordination between the national government and the devolved county health systems. Madam Speaker, this is a provision, a constitutional provision that we have not implemented. The Constitution provides that in case of a devolved function, the national government, in this case the Ministry of Health, has the mandate of policy and standards, while the county governments have the mandate of implementation. Madam Speaker, the critical issue here is that that has not been implemented, and it is therefore not possible to have uniform provision of services and to coordinate services. Madam Speaker, today, let's face it, can the national government, the Ministry of Health, walk to a county and say this policy, this standard is not being adhered to, without the governors saying this is interference in a devolved function? Yet, the performance of health is so varied in different counties, and there can only be one reason for it: because we have no uniform, harmonized policy and strategies that should actually come from the national government. They are there in paper, but it has not been possible to actually implement them, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, this is why the health workers are crying for a constitutional health commission, health services commission, because they believe, Madam Speaker, that in our constitution they will find there will be the strength to actually implement the harmonization that is required in handling their affairs efficiently, fairly, and with consideration. So, Madam Speaker, if as a country we want to progress, we must look at the Constitution again. And the main thing, in my view, Madam Speaker, is how
Very well. The member for Makueni.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Under Article 132 of the Constitution, one of the things the President is expected to report on is any threats facing the nation. And Madam Speaker, in this case, the President reported corona, which is not only affecting Kenya, but affecting the whole world. And it has affected every system of finance, every system of business, every system of education, every system of governance. And truly enough, Madam Speaker, a lot of people have died out of corona. And in fact, the second surge world over is even more dangerous than in the first surge. And Madam Speaker, now almost every Kenyan knows someone they know very well who has been affected by corona or has passed on by corona. On this particular matter, Madam Speaker, it is very clear that the economy of the country has been affected. The health system is highly affected. Doctors have really died. Nurses have died. Trainees have died. And recently, you've seen what happened to doctors also expecting help. It is next to impossible now, Madam Speaker, even to get a bed where ICU bed currently, patients have to wait. I know I'm aware of a patient who died awaiting outside Kenyatta, another one awaiting Karen Hospital, and another friend also awaiting in a different hospital, are totally unable to get a place they can get assisted the moment they stopped breathing. The case of Dr. Ashraf is even worse because he's been taking care of people, he's been in the front line. And unfortunately, Madam Speaker, the people of blood group A and B world over have had a better and a worse chance with the corona than blood group O, Madam Speaker. And the blood group A and B, Madam Speaker, are closing up quickly, unable to breathe quickly because of the clotting, and it's been very difficult, Madam Speaker. The same matter applies when it comes to schools. 15 principals are now reported dead. Of course, the principal will have interacted with the parents, will have interacted with the students, and world over, students are actually carriers. So when they go to school, they may not be totally affected, but they will carry this disease to the teacher, they will carry the disease to the parents. And a lot more deaths have been reported world over, wherever schools have opened, to teachers and to parents. And therefore, it begs the question, Madam Speaker, we have over 5,000 patients being treated at home. Out of those 5,000 patients, we have students from those homes where there is an affected person going to school. That family know very well that they have an affected person. The child has interacted with this person, allows the child to go to school, to interact with other children in school, and to interact with the teachers, Madam Speaker. So I thought as a nation we must take this matter more seriously. And especially now that we plan to open schools, it is very important that monies be released to CDF so that CDF can intervene, as the President suggested, so that we can make sure every school has a water tank and children can constantly wash their hands. At the same time, soap be provided and sanitizers so that there is total cleanliness in school. Unless the national government releases funds through means of education to expand classes and to put more desks, then we are expecting a lot more deaths in January if we open schools with the current status, Madam Speaker. So I thought going way forward, because this is what is really killing economies and killing countries, and loss of a single life is very important, including that one of a child, a parent, or a teacher. We have to be more serious now as a country. And more important, the people on the front line. If all doctors are gone, if doctors go on strike, then we'll have a bigger disaster than we have currently, Madam Speaker. And I think it's upon all of us, it's upon the government, it's upon the Minister of Health to make sure that even the participation of the companies giving corporate social responsibility. One, to make sure there are masks because they reduce the disease by 90% in every school, in every home, and in every institution. And secondly, to make sure that we have cleanliness because this reduces the diseases much more. So, Madam Speaker, I really want to thank the President for what he presented before the House, and I hope that all government ministries and departments will take it upon themselves that we prevent Corona from destroying this country and further. I thank you, Madam Speaker.
Very well. Allow me order that the two members put on or wear their mask well. Honorable CNN, Nguna, can you put your mask on well? Honorable Ivo Barra. Members, it is important that we observe the regulations, and for the purpose of protecting our members, let us put on our masks. It's not a joke, it is real, and we need to protect our members. The member for North Imenti.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I want to first of all thank the President for his speech of State of the Nation. Madam Speaker, the President talked about on page 49, 153, where he said he would want to see a Kenya where no one will ascend to a high public office on account of his tribe. And I wanted to add, not just tribe, Madam Speaker, it should be even race as well, because we have some members in this Parliament who have not been chosen because of their tribe or race, because we are testament to that. Madam Speaker, the President as well mentioned the wedges of bad politics. And Madam Speaker, it is true, if politics is not good, like what the late President Moi used to say, siasa mbaya, maisha mbaya. Madam Speaker, we as Kenyans and as politicians, we should be acceptable to each and every person's contrary opinion. And I believe if we do that, we are going to go very far, Madam Speaker. Although I would want to say that I want to laud the President on his promise that by 2022 we will be having 100% electricity connection. And I hope we can get more money to Kenya Power for the last mile and REA for more transformers in our constituencies. Because, Madam Speaker, we have an issue with those transformers and lines in our constituencies. Madam Speaker, I want to thank His Excellency the President. In 2017, we got titles in my constituency for informal settlements, Majengo, Mjini, and Salama. But, Madam Speaker, we have got another informal settlement called Shauri Yako. Up to date, from 2016 to date, we have still not received, and I hope with the President's message of titling, we will be getting those titles for Shauri Yako. Madam Speaker, it is very well to talk about KEMSA, because KEMSA has been a thorn in the flesh. But, Madam Speaker, I was just listening to the news from the UK. Even in the UK, it seems like everybody wants to benefit from the COVID funds, and there is an 18 billion tender which was given out to people who know the people in the state. And, Madam Speaker, we need to get to the bottom of this KEMSA, because at the moment we need those PPEs to be given to our doctors and medical personnel. Because, Madam Speaker, the other day, I think our CS Mutai Kagwe talked about North Imenti, my constituency, being number 2 to Nairobi in COVID cases. Madam Speaker, let us not generalize COVID for the regions where we come from, because I think we need to know why it is going where it is, because in my case, my constituency is the county headquarters, and it covers more than 7 counties who come to do many, many things in North Imenti. So the stigmatization attached to COVID. I think we need to get away with it. I want to thank the President, Madam Speaker, when on the onset of COVID, where he reduced the VAT from 16 to 14, and we need to know the CDF funds. When are we going to get? Because the President has said MP should do interventions through CDF to help the schools, how they are going to go. But Madam Speaker, you cannot do anything if you have not got the money. So Treasury should release the money for CDF so we can intervene before January, so that when the children go back to school, we have got enough classrooms, we have got enough PPE masks and the rest. Madam Speaker, on universal health care, I would want to say that we are very far off and we need to do much more than what has been done, and it should be free. It should not be chargeable, as well as the school fees as well, Madam Speaker, because we will be giving bursaries very soon when they go back, the children go back.
Very well. Next on my request list, a member for Vihiga County, Mwadagala Kahai. You have the floor.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Madam Speaker. I also want to talk on the President's speech last week in this Parliament. I am supporting it totally because he talked on so many issues. One of the issues that caught my eye or caught my heart is about trade within the East African region. And from his speech, I was actually very much happy because we want to see, like right now in this season we are having COVID-19, it's really devastated many countries. We want to see as a country how SMEs and small business people, how the government is going to assist them to come up, since most of the people, all their businesses have gone down. Maybe if something can be done by the state to ensure small business people have stabilized and can be able to venture into this business, the East African market. Also, I want to comment on the unity. He talked so much about the unity. When a nation is united, there are so many things that we are supposed to do. We shall grow, we shall have harmony. Every tribe in this country and all of us, we shall coexist so well. So when we embrace unity, all the leadership of this country come up together and we talk one voice, I'm very sure the unity of this country, we shall have it and we shall all enjoy as people of this country. I've seen a youthful member here saying that he was put on when the head of state talked about the youth
Honorable
issues.
Adangala, you said he was?
He was excited.
He was excited.
He was turned on. Us as women, we were turned off.
In fact, he said he was turned on.
He was turned on, yes. And us women, we were turned off. Because
women were turned off?
Yes, and especially the 47. We need to be, our issues needs to be looked into. And maybe because of the BBI, we are getting that the 47 are going to Senate. That one can remain. And then
there is a point of order. I think she says not everyone was turned. Am I going your mind? Am I going your mind?
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, is it in order for the Honorable Adagala to claim that women MPs were turned off? Because I think she should not generalize. she should speak specifically for herself. And Madam Speaker, it is also important for the Honorable Adagala to be relevant to documentation, because when I look at the BBI document, I'm seeing gains and gains for women.
No, Honorable Nyamai, what is out of
gains,
order?
What is out of order, Madam Speaker, is lack of truthfulness in what the Honorable Adagala is saying, because she's saying that we were turned off as women in this house.
Order, Honorable Nyamai, order. You know, this is a house of debates. When she said she was turned off, you were turned on, and she was referring to the member, Babu Awino.
She speaks on behalf of women, many women, not just in this house.
She said they, women in this house. Very well, Honorable Adagala, it's your floor. Just carry on. You are in order. You are not Honorable Adagala. Carry on.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, for intervening, and that is the position. Another thing I would talk about, Madam Speaker, another thing I want to talk about, Madam Speaker, I want to talk about the health of this country. Madam Speaker, the President talked very well and encouraged that the COVID-19 rules must be followed, and this COVID-19, Speaker, protect me. This COVID-19 has really affected our country.
You are order, members. Order.
This COVID-19 has really
is out of order. Let's not use these standing orders to put across our points. You are protected.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Thank you. And this COVID-19 has really devastated our country. Keeping in mind, we have lost several people. And in my western region, we have lost several doctors. We were in the meeting yesterday where one of the senior doctors here had to cry. Madam Speaker, this thing is not a joke. And I'm happy you are telling people to put on masks in a better way. We may shout, we may say what, but let me tell you, with this corona, it is now acting in abnormal manner. As much as we may dance, as much as we may say what, COVID is with us here, and I want to thank the President. He has to be stern. He must stop most of the things. We concentrate on COVID that is finishing our people. As much as we hide, our people are dying. As much as we do what, our people are dying. We want medicine in the hospitals. We want nurses to be paid. Like in my county, the nurses are not working, they're striking. And we want to dance here, saying that, oh, what. Whether you say what, Kenyans are suffering, Kenyans are dying. Health issues must be tackled and have to be tackled. And I want to thank the head of state for taking charge of that. And he has to ensure our people are getting medical services in all the counties. Let us not use our names here, throwing words here, laughing, throwing tantrums. No. The country is sick. People are hungry. People don't have food. Teachers are dying. And you want to dance and dance here, talking to us, saying what? We know the President is in charge. And we are supporting him 100%. Therefore, yes, I'm a preacher. I'm going to preach. I'm annoyed. Our people are dying. You can't come to howl.
Very well. Viga, well spoken. In Parliament, he also preach. Let me have the member for Dagoretti South.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker, for this opportunity to contribute to.
And members, allow me to say that we have actually 27 requests for members who want to speak this. In our own standing orders, we know when we are giving thanks, recording thanks and noting reports, we shall do 3 days. So, members, please let us note that we'll be able to speak, all of us. And I wish we could have the chairperson, JLAC, because on the report submitted in fulfillment of the provisions of Article 132(1)(c) and 247 of the Constitution, from the President's address, the chairperson on report number 1 on JLAC should be in the House, or the vice chairperson. Then on the second report, it's to the chairperson on defense, Honorable Kato. I've seen the vice chairperson. Then on the third report, the chairperson on administration, or the committee on administration. It's important to note those, and the vice in the House. It's good to note that because the reports being submitted to the House, the chairperson, the vice chairperson, the committees, of course, together with the committee members, would be in a good place to note. So the representation is required. However, the leader of majority and leader of minority also are in the House. Very well, carry on, Honorable Kiari.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker, and I rise to make my contribution to the State of the Nation address by His Excellency the President, and this opportunity is much appreciated. Madam Speaker, I did note that the President, as required by the law, brought in the 3 reports that he is required to bring. But Madam Speaker, I noted too that the President also went better and brought 2 other extra reports, a report on the ease to do business and a report on the progress made by the DPP. Madam Speaker, I'd like to say that I listened very keenly as the President was giving his report on the measures taken in the achievement of national values. Madam Speaker, I dare say that the President painted a very rosy picture and in fact went on to say that this country is looking strong and resilient, Madam Speaker. But that's not where I'm going to dwell, Madam Speaker. The President did bring a report on our international obligations, Madam Speaker, and he did report well to the House. However, Madam Speaker, on this issue of our international obligations, Madam Speaker, I know this House would have been the better and would have benefited a bit more if we got a bit more information, Madam Speaker, on how we are doing on our international obligations, Madam Speaker. And I do believe that even if it didn't show up in the report, in the speech of the President, we are able as a House to extract some of this very critical information even from Treasury, Madam Speaker. Some of us would have been keen to know how this country is doing on the issue of the debt burden, Madam Speaker. I personally would have been keen to know if we can get Treasury to table contracts that we have with some of these international bodies, Madam Speaker. I personally would be very keen to see how we are doing with our debts with the Exim Bank of China, with our debts with the China Development Bank, because these 2 institutions, Madam Speaker, carry the bulk of the 6.7 trillion shillings that we owe China via these 2 bodies, Madam Speaker. On this issue of international obligations, Madam Speaker, I would have also wanted to know how we are doing in our commercial debts. I'd like to know if Treasury would make it known to us how much debt we have with TDB, for example, Madam Speaker. But that is not what I'm going to dwell on, Madam Speaker. I just wanted to note that even as we speak about our international obligation, one of our biggest and crippling issues is the debt that we owe our international lenders, Madam Speaker, and an update on the status of debt and the restructuring of this debt would have been a good addition to the speech that the President made. Madam Speaker, I think in general, the President gave a good speech, but it would have been a good speech in normal circumstances. But Madam Speaker, we are not in normal circumstances. We are in a crisis. In fact, we are in the battle for survival of humanity, Madam Speaker. We would have been keen to hear what we are doing in terms of prioritizing issues in this country, because I do believe, Madam Speaker, that the issue of COVID takes precedence over any other issue that we are tackling today. Because all the other issues we are talking about development, Madam Speaker. But there is no development for dead people, Madam Speaker. How are we prioritizing our issues as a country, Madam Speaker? I would have wanted to see a more COVID-heavy speech, Madam Speaker, so that we are able to know how this government is tackling this critical issue. Finally, Madam Speaker, I did see the President rather poetically giving us an amazing picture of where he sees the country going, Madam Speaker, which is amazing, Madam Speaker, because he likened himself to the prophet Moses, who on the Mount of Nebo was able to see the promised land, Madam Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Dagorex.
Yes.
But honourable members, if you are raising on a point of order, I want to order that you raise on a point of order that you quote from the standing order. So unless you quote from the standing order that the other member is out of order, then I'll rule you out of order. Let me hear the Honourable Ahmed Shabir, Kisumu East.
I refer to the standing order number 1 on relevance and correction.
Order.
Yes.
Yes.
The speaker has referred to the China Bank and Exim Bank
You
as the
refer to
last
standing order number?
1. On your discretion.
On relevance.
On relevance, yes.
Uh-huh.
On relevance.
Okay.
Madam,
Honourable,
may I proceed?
Honourable Member for Kisumu
May
East.
I proceed?
You are actually out of order.
May I proceed?
Can you refer to your standing order number 1? Our
I'm
standing
talking
order
about
number
relevance.
1.
Madam Speaker, I may not be able to quote the number.
Honourable Member
On
for
relevance.
Kisumu East.
On relevance, Madam. The information that he's giving is incorrect.
Yes.
The China and Exim Bank are not the largest.
Very well. Honourable Member for Kisumu East. Honourable Member for Kisumu East. Can you resume your seat? Honourable Member, standing order number 1 as quoted by the Honourable Member for Kisumu East is not true. And that's why, members, I say it is important to know your own standing orders. So the issue of relevance is not on standing order number 1. Let us not mislead the country. Do not want to inform the country that you have not read your standing orders. So with that one, you are out of order. Please, members, when you are referring to a member being out of order, so that we do not take advantage of the members being out of order, I want to order that please be so sure of the standing order that you are referring to. Today, the member for Kisumu East, the Honourable, you are out of order because you do not even know the standing order you are referring to. Can you read standing order number 1? And for that matter, I will read it for you. Standing order number 1 that you are referring to, it gives cases that have not been provided for the Speaker to decide. So for this one, it's for discretion of the Speaker, and then the relevance, which I want to give you homework to do, it's not in standing order number 1. So carry on, Honourable Member.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker, for protecting me.
Honourable Member for Kisumu East, you are out of order. You are out of order. You are out of order. And even for a member not even to know, understand the standing orders, please refer to your own standing orders. I'm sure you are a long-serving member.
Madam Speaker, I do believe I'm very much in order because I'm contributing to the speech made by the President on the state of the nation, and one of the reports that he presented here is a report on our international obligations, and I do believe, Madam Speaker, that I am in order, knowing very well that this is a very highly indebted country, borrowing 2.5 billion Kenya shillings every day. money that if we were to pay starting today, we would pay all the way to the year 2090. But I was concluding, Madam Speaker, by saying that the President, rather poetically and very eloquently, did paint a very good picture of words, telling us that he likens himself to the great prophet Moses, who on top of the Mount Nebo was able to see the promised land where he will deliver us as Kenyans, Madam Speaker. The younger generation of this country was highly inspired, Madam Speaker, because we do understand the vision of Moses and how he was able to see Canaan all the way from Mount Nebo. But Madam Speaker, it is very clear in my mind from Sunday school that it actually took a Joshua to deliver the people of Israel to Canaan. And Madam Speaker, I do believe that the Joshua generation is up to the task to deliver this country to that very promised land, so that plenty may be found within our borders, as quoted by His Excellency the President, that we love a lot. Thank you very much, Madam Speaker.
And a member assist the House of Debates.
Ni mimi. Ulitoa pikipiki? Mulitani sitaomoka. Ni yako. Hii nduti ni yangu. Niliwahi pale Quickbit. Quickbit? Quickbit imekuja kusaidia wananchi kama sisi. Nilinunua 399 shillings. Juu nilikuwa the lowest unique bidder.
399 shillings.
Quickbit shilingi moja unaweza nunua pizza. Shilingi 2 unaweza nunua microwave. Shilingi 5 unaweza nunua hata gari. So tupeleke huko hata mtu aende huko.
Jiunga na Quickbit ni rahisi. Enda kwenye M-Pesa, bonyeza paybill kisha weka business number 4032353. Kwenye account weka kodi ya bidhaa unayotaka na bidi yako ya chini zaidi. Kwa mfano TV 16. Kisha weka shilingi 20 tu kama idadi yako. Weka bidi yako pia kwenye www.quickbit.co.ke. Kumbuka, bidi ya chini zaidi ya kipekee ndio hununua. Quickbit, bidhaa bora kwa bei ya chini.
Tonight on KBC Channel 1.
We must celebrate. Just forget whatever happened.
It will not be forgotten. And I won't let anyone forget it. Acharya was not killed by Dastan. And whoever killed him is right here.
Tonight on KBC Channel 1.
Kenya's fight against the coronavirus disease has involved a multi-sector approach under the leadership of President Uhuru Kenyatta. While more is still being done, much has been achieved. This week on Project 254.
Tiba ventilator ilianza mwezi wa Aprili ambapo rais alitangaza ugonjwa wa corona kuwa umefika Kenya.
Tunachukua sampuli za COVID-19, lazima tuwe na hii media inaitwa viral transport media.
Tunashukuru President kwa kutake initiative ya kuweza kukumbuka vijiji kama hizi.
Next on.
Napenda tuzungumzie adabu na nafsi.
Uislamu ili atie adabu kwenye nafsi yake ana mambo manne ambayo kwamba afaa kuendea mbio zaidi manne haya.
Takuona vipi ewe mtumwa wangu, nami zimezidi mno dhambi zangu. That's the power of remembering Allah. It's the best way to purify.
two lionesses struggle to cohabit.
Because I'm not going to stand here and be compared to some...
Hey, Nancy, don't try me.
As the coastal vacation brings Nancy and Joe closer.
Nancy, you are full of surprises. What would you like me to do for you this morning?
Or will it be?
Now, can you give us some space?
No. He? Ronali? Ni usherati.
Watch your mouth, Mother Teresa.
Or what?
This game that you and Nancy are playing.
Na nyinyi mmekuwa akina nani kuingilia mambo ya wazazi wenu?
Stringed, making a comeback. Hotter.
You're just gonna stand there and stare at us?
How do you think things will end up here?
This is a conversation between your father and I.
Sometimes it would be good if you would just stand your ground.
Wait, Mtoto, wait. What happens between me and Mama Paul is none of your business.
Bolder.
You know Mama Paul is leaving you.
So what?
What?
I'm done being your puppet and dancing to your tune and manipulation. We called the clients and told them that the court has shut us down.
Only on KBC Channel 1. Fridays at 8:30 p.m.
Napenda kukusalimu sana mtazamaji wangu katika jina la Bwana wetu Yesu Kristo. Majina yangu ni Pastor Evans Maina Ilongo na hudumu na kanisa la Full Gospel Churches of Kenya katika mtaa wa Huruma mjini Nairobi. Nashukuru Bwana kwa sababu ya nafasi hii ambayo ametupatia na ili tukaweza kushiriki neno lake akitutia nguvu katika siku ya leo katika jina la Yesu Kristo. Napenda nikaweza kusoma katika kitabu cha Isaya ama Isaiah 36 na aya yake ni ya 4. Na Biblia inasema hivi ya kwamba the field commander said to them, tell Hezekiah, this is what the great king, the king of Assyria says. On what are you basing this confidence of yours? Napenda kunena ama kukuuliza mtazamaji wangu, ujasiri wako umeiweka wapi? On what are you basing your confidence? Daudi alipokuwa kinena katika Zaburi 20 aya ya 7 akasema ya kwamba wale wanataja magari, wale wanataja falasi, lakini sisi tunalitaja jina lake Bwana na tunaweza kusimama imara katika wokovu wake Mungu. Tumeona neno katika kitabu cha Isaya wakati ambapo Hezekiah alikuwa mfalme katika Yuda. Na Biblia inasema ya kwamba wakati huu Senakeribu akafanyika mfalme wa Ashuru na akaweza kuipiga miji yote yenye boma kule Yuda na akaweza kuiteka. Na hatimaye akapenda kumuweka uoga mfalme wa Israeli ama mfalme wa Yuda ambaye ni Hezekiah. Akamuuliza, je, kwa sababu umekosa kutii amri zangu mimi mfalme wa Ashuru, umeweka ujasiri wako wapi? Hili tumaini lako liko wapi? Na Biblia inasema ya kwamba wakati Hezekiah aliweza kusikia habari ile, akaenda mbele zake Mungu, akakuwa na kilio na kuugua, akamwambia Bwana, ni kweli vile Senakeribu anasema ameweza kuangamiza miungu ya mataifa, na akasema ya kwamba wale miungu wameangamizwa kwa sababu hawakuwa miungu ya kweli, walikuwa miti na mawe. Lakini akasema ya kwamba wewe ndiye Mungu unayeokoa, hebu ukaweze kutupigania. Biblia inasema ya kwamba wakati Mungu alisikia maombi ya Hezekiah, akaweza kumtuma malaika wake mmoja katika usiku mmoja, na malaika wa Mungu akawaangamiza majeshi ya Ashuru katika kambi yao, akaweza kuwaua 185 ama 185,000 soldiers. Na Biblia inasema ya kwamba asubuhi ilipofika hakukuwa na kitu kingine chochote ila ni maiti tupu, kwa sababu Mungu ameshambulia kambi ya maadui na ameweza kuwaangamiza. Hivi ndivyo napenda kukuambia mpendwa, ya kwamba kama ujasiri wetu tutauweka kwake Mungu, kama our confidence will remain in our God, tutaweza kupona, tutaweza kuokoka. Yeye ni jemedali katika vita na hajawahi poteza katika vita, hata katika maisha yetu, katika taifa letu. Nakumbuka ya kwamba kuna wakati ugonjwa ulipoinuka kukatolewa taarifa ya kwamba kama ugonjwa huu utafika Afrika, haitawezekana kujikimu. Afrika haitapona. Lakini napenda kukuambia kwamba Mungu wetu ni mwaminifu. Tumeshuhudia ya kwamba ametupigania, tumeweza kushinda ugonjwa, na sasa tumefanyika dhabiti. Hata wewe weka ujasiri wako kwake Yesu, na maisha yako yatakuwa heri katika jina la Yesu Kristo. Wacha tuombe ninapokuaga katika jina la Yesu. Baba, tunasema ni asante kwa sababu ya neno lako. Umetutia nguvu, umetuambia ya kwamba tukaweke ujasiri wetu kwako, kwa sababu wewe ni jemedali katika vita. Pigana kwa sababu ya maisha ya mtazamaji wangu, pigana kwa sababu ya taifa, na mambo yote yatakuwa shwari, na jina lako litaweza kutukuka. Kwa jina la Yesu tumeomba na hata pia kuamini. Amen, amen. Bwana akaweza kukubariki unapofurahia siku hii katika jina la Yesu. Amen.
Tonight on KBC Channel 1 for a program that is objective and offers answers to matters economic, security, social, political, food, infrastructure, and setting the agenda. Join us for Charging Currents.
President Uhuru Kenyatta outlined his vision for the country, a vision of development and economic growth for the benefit of every Mwananchi. Every week on Project 254, we highlight the strides that have been made in improving the lives of millions of Kenyans. Every Thursday at 8:30 p.m.
My baby, replay, playing my favorite tune. Oh, yeah, chase and ready your love. Oh, already your love. My shaggy, I don't know passing us on your baby, my honey.
Tunakupa burudani.
Na umbea, yani stories zinazo trend kwenye mitandao ya kijamii.
See baby, now we are doing one. We are doing one.
Interview kali za wasanii wapendao.
Mguu pande panda milima. Aoye izungushie hapo ma. Kama una
ndani ya March of Life kupitia KBC Channel 1 na Pwani FM.
Kuanzia mida ya saa 3 mpaka mida ya 5 kamili asubuhi. Ukiwa nami ni Teken 1GB.
Mimi ni Marco. Keep it locked.
Malewa. Yeah. Iseme kawana for daddy.
Next on.
I was approached by Equity Bank to come on board and see what we could do to ensure the healthcare worker was protected to look after the Kenyans.
$12 million cash. The city's leadership and the founders.
You just showed me the bones of a covert fascist state.
I will tell you everything you want to know about the trial.
DA's office doesn't comment on unsubstantiated accusations.
This is tyranny. When you see it, you're obligated to yell.
Wherever you are!
We made things that I myself would comfortably wear to look after patients that have COVID. That to me, it's something that really Kenyans should be proud upon.
Haya! Mtumishi! Ni wewe!
Ni mimi.
Ulitoa pikipiki?
Mlitani sitaomoka.